I'm quite pleased that we're actually starting the week with a bit of a rainy Monday, because that is just the perfect reading weather. You might relate to me in the sense that when I was younger, I did a lot of reading. It was my go-to hobby and I consumed story after story, but as I grew older, you know, left home, went to university, got caught up in the kind of hustle culture of my 20s. Reading is one of the things I let go, but I've been slowly reintroducing it to my life over the last 2 to 3 years, and I would now say that I am an avid bookworm, and it's one of my absolute favourite ways to spend time and a really important part of my slow life. This week I thought I would just take you on like a realistic week in my life and chat about how I fit reading in, because I get a lot of questions about that. I want to indulge in a few other bookish activities. I definitely want to do a little bit of book shopping, and of course I can share my thoughts and reviews of everything I am reading this week. So if you haven't already, then make sure you get yourself a nice cozy drink and settle in for a nice chilled reading vlog. Sky is joining us for this portion of the video. It is actually Monday the 1st of July today, which is a very satisfying day. I love it when a month starts on a Monday, and it also means that I can update my book basket, which I tend to do on roughly a monthly basis. And I've got a range of different books in here. So my general reading rhythm is I tend to read one non-fiction and one fiction and about the same time. I can read more than that. Occasionally I'll mix up and add another genre in there, or maybe a short story or like a classic fiction, a different kind of fiction. But what I really enjoy doing, and I think stops me getting into a reading rut, is I vary my genres that I read throughout the month. So we've got a bit of a mix in here. I'll give you a quick tour. In terms of non-fiction, I tend to read that a lot slower than I do fiction. I'm definitely a fiction girly most of the time, but I really do enjoy reading some non-fiction on a regular basis, and I tend to focus on reading that in the morning. And the book I'm currently reading is this one, is H is for Hawk. It's a nature memoir that follows the author as she develops a relationship with a goshawk that she trains, and she gets this goshawk primarily because she's grieving the loss of her dad. So it's all about how her relationship develops with this goshawk and now how it helps her heal. The only other non-fiction I've got in here is this really small book that I got recently, The Year of Nothing by Emma Gannon. So this is a really short book. I think it's only 60-70 pages. It's a set of 2, so this is the summer and autumn one, and I've also got the winter and spring edition, and it's just a really short memoir about Emma's year of nothing. So it's talking about basically how she starts slowing down her life after suffering from burnout. I like to read classics regularly, especially children's classics. I find them a lot more accessible, and they're one of my favourite ways of just pure escapism. So the one I've chosen for this month is The Mystery of Holly Lane by Enid Blyton. I got this in a wee charity shop, this really old edition of it. And then the 3 novels I've got in here, I might read more than this. Occasionally I do read more, but again, I don't want to overstuff my basket, put pressure on myself. The first one is this, The Last Letter from Your Lover. This is a romance, maybe romance mystery, in the sense that it follows a journalist that finds a letter that a man wrote to this woman back in the 1960s asking her to basically leave her husband for him. So there's this journalist tracking down this woman, this relationship, did she leave him, what happened to her, that kind of thing. And then this other book I got is The Lost Storyteller, which appears to be a mystery of a daughter that finds a book of fairy tales that her absent father wrote, and it's figuring out what this book means, if these fairy tales are actually real, and how it helps her track down her father. And then my friend lent me this one as The Keeper of Lost Things, which I don't really know what it's about. It's a bit of a vague blurb, but it's about a man who spent his life collecting objects, lost objects, and it's about him and his assistant Laura trying to reunite these lost items with people. So it looks to be just sort of like a general fiction. So the book I just finished was actually a thriller, so I'm leaning towards something a bit more light-hearted. I think I'm gonna try this one this week. So I started this book yesterday and we're reading in bits and bobs today. I just did a little bit of reading outside, which was nice. I do enjoy doing that. So I'm almost 100 pages in. I often think it's the first 50 to 100 pages, especially the first 50 pages where you really get to know main characters, you know, you get more involved in the plot. I feel like that's when the author sort of sets everything out. The prologue was set in the modern day because that's when we met Ellie, who is a journalist, and she's the one that uncovers this letter. Find out a little bit about her and the fact that she's got her own kind of romance going on. She's actually, not really a spoiler because you find out in the prologue, she's in the midst of having an affair with a married man, an author. You don't know much more than that, to be honest. But she stumbles across this letter, and then the author has thrown us back to the 60s, and we first meet Jenny, where she wakes up in hospital, and you're seeing it all from a point of view in the sense she doesn't really remember everything. You get to know her husband, and you can kind of tell there's a bit of strain in that relationship. And then you also, I presume, have met her love interest, the one that writes her that letter. So that's another timeline again. It looks like it's gone back in time to when those two meet. So we're kind of straddling 3 different timelines now. Initial thoughts, I'm really enjoying it. I feel like I've got into it quite quickly. I feel like it's going to be quite a sweeping romance. I feel like it's going to be very immersive. I actually got quite into, I only read the prologue from Ellie's perspective, but I actually really quite like that character instantly. So I hope we do hear a lot more from her as well. But yeah, I'll probably read a bit more of this evening. I will keep you posted. I've just been spending an hour or so doing a bit of work in a cafe, but now I'm going to head over to Waterstones because I actually have a free book. So I've actually gained enough tokens to get a free book with Waterstones because I have their loyalty card. So I've been saving it because I wasn't sure what I wanted to get. And I'm still not entirely sure what I want to get, but I thought this would be a good opportunity to take you guys along with me and have a look around. I think I'm probably going to get non-fiction. I would quite like to get another nature memoir type book. So they tend to have a good selection of those, although it is quite a small Waterstones. They've got a nice nature section. So I'm going to go and see what I can find. This is why I shouldn't browse in Waterstones too often. I went in for one book and I came out with 3, but that's fine because one I got completely for free because I had £10 voucher, and the other 2 were on buy one get one half price. It's fine. And I did feel like I needed to add a little bit more oomph to my summer reading. The last books I have on my bookshelf, I'm a bit like meh about. I feel like that's what happens when you have a load of books. You kind of leave the ones that you're like less interested in till later on. So I've got a couple more for my summer reading list, but the first book I did get a nature book. That's what I went in for, and I think my friend recommended this to me. It rang a bell. It's The Easternmost House by Juliet Blakeslund. You can hear a dog panting, by the way. I've just taken Sky out with her ball, so apologies for that in the background. And this essentially just looks like it's this woman living in the English coast, and it goes through her year there and describes the nature and the changing seasons and how the landscape is changing with like coastal erosion. It just looks like a nice meditative journal almost about nature, and that's the kind of stuff I love to read, so I thought I'd give that a go. And then I got 2 novels. I mostly wanted this one because I thought I really am craving another murder mystery type book, and this looks absolutely that kind of book, absolutely ideal. It's Murder at Lake Garda, and it's essentially following a famous family, a Hollywood family, that are at a destination wedding on a private island, and someone gets killed. Basically, it says that they are all trapped on this island, and whilst they're waiting for the police, all these family secrets come out. Fun kind of murder mystery. This one, I just something drew me to it. It wasn't necessarily the kind of book I always pick up or often pick up, but it is based in the summer. I think that was part of it. It's The Guest by Emma Cline, and I think it's like a literary fiction. I've just had a little look on Goodreads, and that's the kind of genre they put it in, but it's got some pretty good reviews. And the main protagonist is Alex, who is a young woman that has been living in New York but runs out of money, so she agrees to spend August at a beach with this older man she's been seeing, but it all goes wrong. and the man she's seeing decides he doesn't want her there anymore because of her behaviour or misstep at a dinner party. She decides to actually stay on this island, and it looks like things unravel even further and she leaves a trail of destruction behind her. Just how long can she keep going before she's found out? Exciting read, and I definitely want to read this in August. So a nice wee book haul. It is absolutely lashing it down today. It's very, very heavy rain, which admittedly isn't July weather, and I'm in my like cozy jumper because it's not that warm, but I actually love the rain. I love going out in the rain, but I also love coming in and drying off and doing a little bit of like cozy activities, so I'm quite happy with it. I've just been adding these new titles to my reading planner, which is a Notion planner I created a few months ago, and I really love using it. It helps me be organised and stay consistent with my reading. I only started using Notion I think about a year ago, but since that point it's become like absolutely fundamental in my life. I plug everything into there. I do all my work stuff in there, but I also do like personal things in there, hobby. I think it's a really fantastic organisational resource, but I would say it does take a little while to get to grips with it. But I managed to figure out pretty quickly, primarily by using my favourite online learning platform, which is Skillshare, who I am thrilled to be partnering with again on this video. Skillshare continues to be the largest online learning platform for creatives. Ali Abdaal is one of my favourite teachers on there. I loved watching his Notion masterclass because it covered all of the fundamentals of everything I would ever want to know about Notion, even from me being a complete beginner. It's even meant that I've been able to set up an extra income stream for my business because I now sell my own Notion templates on my Etsy store. I truly believe that Skillshare has something to offer for everybody, whether it be for your career, full-time, side hustle, even just for hobbies. I've raved about their creative writing classes on there. I think they're some of my absolute favourite to take, and I love the variety on there, from like fiction, short stories, personal essays. I've been using Skillshare for years, and I remember when I first started creating online but I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do and I was a bit anxious about it. I watched Emma Gannon's class, Unlocking Potential, 5 Exercises to Build Creative Confidence. All of Emma's classes on Skillshare are fantastic and I cannot recommend them enough. I've also taken classes in photography, videography, marketing, and some of my personal hobbies like journaling. If you would like to try Skillshare for yourself, then the first 500 people to click on the link in my description can get a 30-day free trial. And please do share or continue to share your class recommendations in the comments because I would love to read them. Thank you so much to Skillshare for continuing to support my channel. So it's actually Saturday morning now. I didn't end up filming anything yesterday because I was just finishing up a few work bits, but I did finish the last letter to, what's it called? The Last Letter from Your Lover. So I thought I'd give you a little roundup of my thoughts of these books this week. So I'm still ongoing with this one. I think I'm about halfway, just over halfway through. So I'm on track to finish this by the end of the month, which means I can pick up a new non-fiction, probably that new nature book I got in August, which would be fab. I'm still enjoying it. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a page turner, and there are some bits of it that are quite slow, especially when she talks about this other guy back in history that trained falcons, and you seeing his story as well. I'm just less invested in that than hers, but yeah, still definitely enjoying this and reading bits and bobs of this in the mornings. I finished this one this year and I think, so I'll move on to her other one, her winter spring one, I think, for next week. So I've got that. Really quick, easy read, and I do like that in the back she's given you some book recommendations, some books she enjoyed when she was doing her Year of Nothing, as she calls it. So I've tabbed a couple of those because they look like some good reads. And then I finished this yesterday. I had quite a big work morning, but later on in the afternoon I was like, right, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to finish this. I ended up finishing it in the evening actually because it's a fairly chunky book. It's like almost 500 pages. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I think I'm probably going to give it 4 stars. I'd say it's like a solid 4 from me, which is a pretty good rating. My average rating for most of my readings 3.5, so it's slightly higher than average. So we spent most of the time back with Jenny and her romance with her lover, and you saw it from her point of view, but you also saw it from her lover's point of view, both across different timelines and also when they are in the same timeline, if that makes sense. It was like a little bit of that as sort of jumping back and forth quite a bit. But yeah, you spent most of the time there, but you did go back to modern day and find out a little bit more about Elle, which I was pleased about because they kind of, like I said, built her up a little bit in the prologue. So I was quite glad that we went back and sort of tied up her story as well, and there was a little bit of an interaction overlap between the romances and the characters. It's definitely a very star-crossed lovers kind of romance. Like, it's quite, like I said, it was quite sweeping and quite dramatic in some ways, quite high stakes, quite frustrating to read, and in the sense that it's sort of like you're so egging on the romance and then things keep going wrong. I won't want to say too much obviously because I don't want to spoil it. I would say that I would just say it's a really good solid romance, especially if you're looking for more historical romance but not too historic because it was in the 1960s, so it's still, you know, fairly modern, and it's quite interesting to contrast that historical romance against Ellie's experience. And they talked a lot about love letters in particular because obviously it's about this and how that's changed, how our ways of communicating changed. And I quite liked that at the beginning of every chapter they would give an example of some sort of communication between two lovers. So that one's like a Facebook update, I think, and then there's other ones that are like postcards, text, emails, letters, which was quite nice. So I think she did that well. She ran that theme of love letters out really well. I would say at one point, I kind of saw it coming, but I was just like, I threw the book down. I was just like, oh, why has this happened that way? It was a bit, yeah, it was hard. You know, there are some sad moments in it and there's a bit frustrating, and like I say, they are kind of star-crossed lovers, and in a lot of ways they're kind of doomed. When you look at it from like, is this realistic? There's a little bit of it that's like, I'm not sure. You know, I'm not sure that would actually happen. I'm not sure the characters would actually act that way. I'm not sure these circumstances would align like this. But that's part of the fun, isn't it? That's part of the fun and the charm of a romance. So yeah, if you're looking for a really good, solid, historical-ish romance, then I definitely recommend this. She's a great author. She knows exactly what she's doing. She makes these characters really well-rounded and you get very invested in their stories. So yeah, that was my reason this week. I think as it's the weekend, I quite like the idea of delving into some Enid Blyton and reading a little bit of that children's story from her. I just think that's a nice, restful way, and then I can maybe start another one of my fictions on Monday. But I hope you enjoyed coming along with me this week, and let me know if you want me to film more vlogs like this, more kind of like reading vlogs, weekly vlogs, anything like that. I never get tired chatting about books, so do let me know. And remember, there's still that link in my description if you want to get that free trial with Skillshare. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you've had a lovely weekend, and I will see you next time.